Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started.
We have a massive stack of documents today, and honestly, they paint a picture of a profession that is equal parts high-tech wizardry and, sweating in a muddy field, hoping your equipment works.
That is a perfect description.
We are heading out into the field today, specifically into the high-stakes world of drone mapping.
It's a fascinating world because it sits right at the intersection of aviation, photography, and some pretty hardcore data science.
And usually you're doing it while wearing a safety vest and dodging excavators.
That too. Definitely that too.
Exactly. And we have a very specific mission today. We are looking at a collection of manuals, field guides, and some pretty intense troubleshooting protocols that all revolve around preventing one specific terrifying moment.
It is the moment every single drone pilot dreads. I don't care how experienced you are, this moment, it haunts you.
It's called the office surprise. And just to be clear, for everyone listening, we are not talking about a birthday cake in the break room.
No, not a good surprise, not a bonus check.
So what is it?
The office surprise is that sinking feeling. It's the scenario where you have flown the mission, you've been on site for hours, the client was standing right there watching the drone zip back and forth.
You land, you show them the tablet, everything looks good.
You nod, you say, looks perfect, we got it. You pack up all your gear, you drive, maybe 3 hours home, feeling pretty good about the day.
You're feeling like a pro. You nailed it.
You sit down at your powerful desktop, you start to upload the data to your processing software, and only then, when you're hundreds of miles away, do you realize the data is completely useless.
That pit in your stomach, I can only imagine.
It is the absolute worst feeling in the profession. Because at that point, the cost of failure isn't just a bad photo. It's not like taking a bad selfie where you can just, delete it and take another one.
Right.
This is what the industry calls a second mobilization.
A second mobilization. That sounds expensive just saying it.
It is. Think about it. You have to drive all the way back. That's gas, that's your time. But it's usually much worse than that.
How so?
You might have lost site access. Let's say you are mapping a construction site to measure dirt piles, for billing.
Okay.
Those piles move. That's the whole point of a construction site. If you come back 3 days later, the site has changed. The data you were supposed to capture is physically gone forever.
Or the equipment has been moved, the conditions are different, the lighting is wrong.
Exactly. The lighting is a huge one. You can't match afternoon sun to morning sun.
Yeah.
And then there is the trust component. This is maybe the biggest cost.
The relationship with the client.
Yes. You go from being the precision expert, the person with the flying robot who measures things to the centimeter, to the person who has to make that embarrassing phone call.
The one where you have to apologize and say, we have to do it again.
And you lose that aura of competence instantly. It's a huge blow to your reputation.
So the sources we are unpacking today are all about avoiding that exact moment. We're decoding what they call the field QC habit.
QC as in quality control.
Right. It's about moving from a mindset of, I hope this works, to a mindset of, I can prove this worked.
And doing it while you still have the sky, the batteries, and the access to fix it?
That is the key, isn't it? Fixing it while it's cheap, fixing it on site.
While the fix costs you 5 minutes instead of $500.
I love that phrase from the notes. Defensible data. Data you can stand behind. Now, to kick us off, we need to make a distinction that came up in the source material right away.
A very important one.
The difference between QA and QC. I'll be honest, I always used to use these interchangeably. I thought they were just corporate buzzwords for checking stuff.
A lot of people do, but there are very different things in this context, aren't they?
They are completely different, and mixing them up is actually the source of a lot of these failures.
It really is. Think of it this way. QA, or quality assurance, is the plan. The analogy they use is, it's packing the parachute.
Packing the parachute. Okay, I like that. So it's everything you do before you even get in the plane.
It's everything you do before the drone leaves the ground. You check your camera settings at your desk. You plan your flight path on the mapping software, you check the weather forecast, you update your firmware.
You're assuring quality by creating a solid process.
You are trying to prevent errors before they even happen. It's all about preparation.
So QA is the prep work. It's the checklist you do at the office or in the truck before you even power on the drone.
Correct. Now, QC, quality control, is the evidence. It's the tug test on the parachute lines right before you actually jump out of the plane. It involves specific checks you do after the data is captured, after you land, but before you pack up and leave the site. It is looking at the actual product to verify it meets the standard.
That is such a crucial distinction. QA is hoping the plan works. QC is proving it did.
Exactly. You can have the best QA in the world, the perfect flight plan, fully charged batteries. But if a sudden gust of wind vibrates the camera at a critical moment, or a big cloud rolls in and changes all the lighting,
Your plan didn't account for that.
your plan is irrelevant. QA can't fix that. Only QC can catch it.
And the hook for today's deep dive is basically turning you, the listener, into the pilot who says, hang on, I'm just doing a quick verification so you don't pay for a second mobilization, rather than the one who has to send that apology email 3 days later.
We want to build that instinct, that verify then drive instinct. It's a career saver.
So let's get into the meat of this. The sources describe 3 main categories of failure. They call them the 3 gremlins of bad data. And I love the names they've given them.
You're very memorable.
Blur, gaps, and the lie.
It's a fantastic framework. Blur, gaps, lie. It sounds like a bad Western movie, but if you can spot these 3 things in the field, you will eliminate 90% of your mapping failures. I guarantee it.
Let's start with gremlin number 1, blur. The sources call this the silent killer. Why silent?
Because it lies to your eyes. It is so deceptive. When you are standing in a field, holding a tablet or a controller, you're usually looking at a small screen. Maybe it's 5 inches, maybe 7 inches.
And the sun is glaring off the glass.
The sun is glaring, you're trying to watch the drone, you're keeping an eye on your surroundings. You look at the photo the drone just took, and it looks like a nice, bright picture of the ground.
The thumbnail looks fine.
The thumbnail looks great. But photogrammetry, the science of making 3D maps from 2D photos, doesn't care about the thumbnail. It doesn't care about the vibe of the photo. It cares about pixels.
We should probably unpack that mechanism a little bit. How does the software actually build the map? It's the 3D puzzle analogy, right?
That's the best way to think about it. Imagine you're trying to build a massive 3D puzzle of a landscape, but you don't have cardboard pieces. You have hundreds, maybe thousands of digital photos.
Okay.
The software has to look at photo A and photo B and find tie points.
Tie point.
These are tiny, unique, high contrast features. The sharp corner of a rock, a crack in the pavement, the corner of a painted parking line. The software identifies these exact points in multiple photos and then uses geometry, some pretty complex math, to triangulate exactly where that point is in 3D space.
So it's matching specific pixel patterns.
It is matching those patterns. Now, imagine if photo A is just slightly blurry. That sharp edge of the rock isn't a sharp transition from gray to black anymore. It's a smudge. It's a soft gradient.
The puzzle piece is melted.
The puzzle piece is melted. The software looks at it and says, I can't find the corner. Or worse, it thinks it finds the corner, but it's in the wrong spot because of the blur.
So what happens to the final map?
Well, you might get a map that looks like a melted painting. We call it soup in the industry. Or the software just gives up and rejects the images entirely, and you have a giant hole in your project.
And the sources point out that this isn't usually about bad focus in the traditional sense. It's rarely that the camera just forgot to focus.
That's very true. Modern drone cameras are pretty smart. Their autofocus is generally excellent for this kind of work. The real enemy here is almost always motion blur.
Right.
You have to remember, the drone is moving. It's a flying robot. It might be cruising at 10 or 15 meters per second.
That's fast. That's like 30, 35 miles per hour.
Right. And if the camera shutter stays open too long while the drone is moving that fast, the ground literally smears across the sensor. It's exactly like taking a photo out of a moving car window.
The foreground is just a blur.
It's the same principle. And this brings us to the 100% zoom rule. I feel like this is the golden rule of this entire deep dive. If listeners take one thing away today, it should be this.
Okay, lay it on us.
It's simple. You cannot judge data quality from a thumbnail. You cannot judge it from the map view on your controller. You must open a specific raw image from the SD card and zoom all the way in to 100%.
1-to-1 pixels.
Exactly. You have to look at the texture, you have to look at the gravel in a parking lot, you have to look at the shingles on a roof. If the gravel looks like oatmeal, just a mushy gray mess, you have blur.
It needs to look like individual rocks.
You need to be able to count the stones. If you can't see the fine detail at 100%, the software can't either. If you don't check at 100%, you are just guessing. And guessing is how you end up with an office surprise.
So that's blur. Let's move to gremlin number 2. Gaps, the missing pieces.
This is where the Swiss cheese effect comes in. This is a geometric problem, not an optical one.
What do you mean by that?
You might fly a perfect grid. If you look at your flight path on the controller's screen, it looks like you painted the whole area green. You think, I covered everything.
But the map on the screen is lying to you.
It's lying because the map view is 2D, but the world is 3D.
Right. The world has height, it has topography.
Precisely. Let's say you have a tall crane or a large stockpile of gravel or a building right in the middle of your site. If you are flying strictly top-down, what we call nadir imagery, the camera sees the top of that building perfectly. It sees the roof.
But it can't see through the roof.
It might completely miss the ground right next to the base of the building. The building itself is blocking the view. It's an occlusion.
It's like looking down at a soda can standing on a table.
Perfect analogy. You see the pop tab on top perfectly, but you don't see the logo on the side, and you definitely don't see the part of the table that is tucked right up against the bottom of the can.
So if your client needs to measure the volume of that stockpile, or they need the exact footprint of that building, and you only gave them the lid,
you have a gap. The data just isn't there. When the software tries to process that, it either leaves a big empty hole or it does something even weirder. It stretches the texture of the roof down to the ground, creating this bizarre melted wall effect. It's garbage data either way.
And the other part of gaps is the edges, right? The sources talk about the edges of a map being like loose threads on a piece of fabric.
That's a great visual. Think about how photogrammetry works. To map a point accurately, you need to see it from multiple angles, multiple photos.
So the triangulation to work.
Yes. In the middle of your map, every rock on the ground is seen by 5, 10, maybe 20 cameras as the drone flies over. That area is woven tight. It's robust.
Lots of overlap, lots of redundancy.
But at the very edge, at the absolute border of your flight plan, you might only have 1 or 2 photos covering that ground. If one of them is blurry or the drone tilted a bit in the wind just as it took the shot,
You've lost your redundancy.
you have nothing to fall back on. The map literally unravels at the border. The edges become distorted or just disappear completely.
So blur is the silent killer, gaps are the missing pieces. Now we get to the third gremlin, and this one sounds the most sinister. The lie.
The lie is the most dangerous because it passes the eye test. It looks great.
What do you mean?
You can have a map that is crystal clear. Sharp photos, no motion blur, no gaps, no Swiss cheese. It looks like a perfect, beautiful Google Earth image, but the coordinates are wrong.
So you hand it to an engineer, they overlay their blueprints for a new building.
And the building is 3 meters to the left, or even worse, the elevation is floating 10 meters in the air. That is the lie. It almost always comes down to positioning errors.
So this is a GPS problem.
It's a problem with your high-precision GPS, what we call RTK or PPK, or using the wrong coordinate systems or wrong datums.
And that's expensive. That's not just a bad photo. That could be a lawsuit if someone pours a concrete foundation in the wrong place.
Exactly. If a contractor uses your map to calculate how much dirt to move for a project and your elevations are off by half a meter, they might bid the job wrong by $100,000. The lie is about integrity. It's about being able to prove that X marks the spot exactly where the real world spot is.
Okay, so we have our 3 enemies, blur, gaps, and the lie. I want to deep dive into each of these, specifically looking for the field techniques the sources give us to fight them. Let's go back to optical truth battling blur. There's a specific technique mentioned called the swipe test. Walk us through this.
This is a brilliant tactile way to check for motion blur. It solves the problem of, is this blurry or is my screen just bad? Or is it just the sun's glare?
So how does it work?
You land the drone, or you pause it and pull images wirelessly if your system supports that, which is even better. You pull up the full resolution JPEGs, you zoom in 100% on a high detail patch. Asphalt is perfect for this, or a gravel road.
Okay, 100% zoom on some asphalt.
Then, keeping the zoom locked at 100%, you swipe to the next photo in the sequence, then the previous one. You just swipe back and forth rapidly between 2 or 3 adjacent photos.
Like a flip book.
Exactly like a flipbook. And what you are looking for is the snap. If the gravel details, the little edges of the stones, stay in the exact same crispness or snap into focus immediately as the new image loads, you're good. Your data is sharp.
And if they don't, what's the red flag?
The red flag is a smear. If you see the rocks look like they're dragging in one direction, or if the texture seems to melt and reform as you switch photos, that's motion blur.
And the distinction here is between motion blur and just bad focus, right? It helps you diagnose the problem.
Yes, that's a key point. If every single photo is soft, no matter how much you swipe, then you might have a dirty lens, or maybe the camera's focus mechanism is stuck. It's a consistent softness.
What with motion blur?
It's inconsistent. It snaps sharp, then smears, then snaps sharp again. That tells you it's vibration or the drone was moving too fast for the shutter speed in that specific moment. It's a dynamic problem, not a static one.
There's some math involved here too, mentioned in the guides. The half-pixel rule. Now, we promise not to turn this into a math class, but this concept is really empowering for a pilot.
It is because it tells you your speed limit. It gives you control. Every map has a resolution, right? We call it GSD, ground sampling distance.
Okay.
Let's say your TSD is 2 centimeters. That means 1 pixel in your camera's photo equals 2 centimeters of real dirt on the ground.
Got it. 2 centimeter pixels.
The half-pixel rule says that while the camera shutter is open, the drone cannot move more than half of that distance. So in this case, it cannot move more than 1 centimeter.
Because if it moves more than 1 centimeter,
if it moves 5 centimeters while the shutter is open, that single pixel on the sensor is trying to record 5 centimeters of ground. It's a smear. It's averaging all that information into a blur of colors. The software can't match it.
So if I want to fly fast, I need a very, very fast shutter speed.
Exactly. It's a trade-off. If you are flying at 10 meters per second, you might need a shutter speed of 11,000th or 11/1200th of a second to freeze the motion and obey the half-pixel rule.
And that brings us to the trap of auto exposure. The sources act like auto exposure is a bit of a frenemy in mapping. It can help you, but it can also betray you.
It's a huge frenemy because the camera's brain, the auto exposure algorithm, has one priority: brightness. It wants to produce a nice, well-lit picture. It doesn't know you are making a map. It thinks you are taking a landscape photo for Instagram.
So if a cloud rolls over in the middle of a flight line,
the camera says, "Oh, it's getting dark. I need more light." So what does it do? It slows down the shutter to let more light in. It might drop the shutter from a safe 11,000th of a second down to a dangerous 1200th.
and you're still flying at the same speed.
You're still flying at 10 meters per second, but now your shutter is 5 times slower. Suddenly you have massive motion blur. The camera saved the brightness, but it completely ruined the sharpness.
So the professional move is to not use full auto.
Right. Most pro mappers use shutter priority mode, or even full manual. You tell the camera, do not go slower than 11,000th. I don't care if the image gets a little dark, you must keep it sharp. Sharpness is king.
Speaking of brightness and darkness, there's a great phrase in the text, exposure as texture theft. I love that image. It's not just that the photo is too bright, it's that you have stolen the data.
You've erased it. Think about a shiny white metal roof, or a pile of white silica sand. If the sun hits it just right and it goes pure white in the photo, what photographers call blown highlights, there is zero data there.
It's just a flat white sheet in the image.
The digital value for that pixel is 255, 255, 255. It's maxed out. The software looks at that and says, I see white here, and I see white over here too. It can't distinguish one part of the roof from another because there is no texture, no grain, no contrast, nothing to latch on to.
It's a texture hole.
It's a data hole. And the same thing happens with crushed shadows. If the shadow under a big piece of equipment is pure black, it's just another data hole. You have to expose the image so that you can see detail in the brightest whites and the darkest blacks.
There was a specific case study about a shiny roof that really illustrated this, the sliding glare problem. This sounded like a nightmare to debug if you didn't know what to look for.
Oh, this is a classic. It drives people crazy because the individual photos look fine. You are mapping a warehouse with a metal roof. On the tablet, it looks fine. It's bright, sure, but it looks like a roof.
But the sun is reflecting off it, creating a hot spot.
Right. There is a glare spot, a specular highlight. Now, as the drone flies forward on its grid pattern, the angle between the drone, the roof, and the sun changes constantly.
So the glare spot moves.
It slides across the roof. In photo A, the glare is on the left side. In photo B, taken 2 seconds later, it's in the middle. The photogrammetry software is dumb in this regard. It doesn't know it's a reflection. It sees a bright white blob and thinks, oh, that's a feature. I need to map that feature.
But the feature is moving relative to the roof it's on.
Exactly. So the software tries to triangulate a moving object. It creates total chaos in the math. You end up with a roof that looks warped, or it has weird spikes, or a giant hole in it where the glare was.
So what's the fix for that? You can't exactly turn off the sun.
The fix is geometry. You have to change your flight plan. You have to think about the physics of the light.
How so?
Don't fly directly towards or away from the sun, which maximizes that glare. Instead, fly cross-sun perpendicular to the light. Or even better, fly at a different time of day when the sun is lower or higher in the sky, changing that angle of reflection. Sometimes you just have to wait for a cloud.
That is fascinating. It's not a camera setting issue. It's a physics and planning issue.
It is. It's understanding that you aren't just taking pictures of a roof. You are taking pictures of light bouncing off a roof. And that light can lie to your software.
Okay, let's move to section 3. Geometric truth. We talked about gaps, but I want to dig into the perfect grid trap. The case study here is the pilot who draws the boundary box exactly on the fence line of a property.
It feels so precise, doesn't it?
It feels like the right thing to do. I'm only being paid to map this property, so I'll draw my line exactly on the property line.
It's the instinct of a tidy mind, but it's a disaster for mapping. The source has a great little saying for this. Corners are edge plus turn.
Unpack that for us. Corners are edge plus turn.
When a drone gets to a corner of a grid, it has to perform a complex maneuver. It's flying straight at speed, then it has to slow down, stop its forward momentum, yaw 90 or 180 degrees, and accelerate back in the other direction.
It's not a video game character that turns on a dime. It has momentum and inertia.
Right. And during that turn, the gimbal might swing a little due to the centrifugal force. The camera trigger might pause for a second. The wind might push the drone slightly inward as it banks.
So your flight line is drawn exactly on the fence.
And the wind pushes you just 2 meters inside the fence during that turn. You just miss the corner of the property, you clip the data, you literally cut the corner off your final map.
So the solution is buffer. Add some padding.
Always buffer. The rule of thumb from the guide is fantastic. Edges want 1 extra, corners want 2.
What does that mean? 1 or 2 what?
1 or 2 photo footprints. So you plan your flight path to go 1 or 2 photo widths beyond the actual thing you care about.
You need to overshoot the runway to land safely.
That's a great way to put it. You want the drone to be flying straight and stable before it enters the important area. All the messy turning and banking should happen out over the neighbor's field, assuming you have airspace permission, or just outside the client's actual target zone.
I like that. Edges want 1, corners want 2. It's a simple mantra to remember in the field. Now, let's go back to the Swiss cheese problem and tall objects. We mentioned the soda can analogy, but how do we fix it? If I have to map a construction site with a big crane or a dense group of trees, and I know a simple grid will leave holes, what do I do?
You have to change your perspective.
Yeah.
Literally, a simple top-down grid isn't enough. You need obliques.
Angled photos.
Yes. Most mapping is done nadir, with the camera pointing straight down at a negative 90-degree angle. To fix the Swiss cheese, you need to add another flight where you tilt the camera up to maybe negative 60 or negative 45 degrees.
And fly a different pattern with that angled camera.
Often, yes. A very common and effective technique is to fly a crosshatch pattern. You fly a normal grid that goes north-south, and then you fly a second grid over the same area that goes east-west.
So you're seeing everything from 2 different directions.
At least. And if you have a really important feature like a big building, you might even fly a circular orbit around it with the camera angled in.
So you are actively trying to see behind the obstacles.
You're filling in the shadows. By coming at the object from the side, you can see the vertical faces of the building, and you can see the ground that was hidden by the roof overhang. It creates a much, much more robust and complete 3D model.
It sounds like more work, but it's cheap insurance.
It takes a few more minutes to fly a second grid, but it saves you from delivering a map with a black hole where the crane base should be.
There's another geometric trap that I hadn't thought about before reading these notes. The battery swap scene.
Ah, the stitch scar.
This is a sneaky one. It gets a lot of new pilots.
Yeah. The scenario is simple. You fly 70% of the job, the battery gets low. You bring the drone home, land, put in a fresh battery, and send it back up to finish. It seems innocent enough. What goes wrong there?
A lot can go wrong in those 5 minutes the drone is on the ground. When you restart the drone and the camera, the settings might reset. Maybe the white balance shifts from cloudy to sunny because the sun came out from behind a cloud while you were swapping.
So now the colors don't match between the two halves of the map. The colors don't match, which is ugly. But the geometry is the bigger issue.
How so?
Drones use barometers, air pressure sensors, to help estimate their altitude relative to the takeoff point. Barometers drift. The air pressure in the atmosphere changes constantly.
So after the battery swap, the drone thinks it's at 100 meters.
But the air pressure drops slightly while it was on the ground, so now 100 meters of air pressure actually corresponds to a real-world altitude of 101 meters. The drone flies the second half of the mission 1 meter higher than the first half.
And the pilot would never know just from looking at the controller.
Not at all. The controller says 100 meters for both flights. But the data doesn't lie. The scale changes. The pixel size changes. When the software tries to stitch the first half to the second half, they don't fit together perfectly.
It creates a visible seam.
A visible seam or a step in the ground in the 3D model. It might look like a little fault line running through the middle of the parking lot. It's a dead giveaway of a multi-battery mission that wasn't managed properly.
And the fix is the two-line overlap rule.
Simple and effective. Never just pick up where you left off. If you stopped at line 10 of your grid, don't just tell the drone to start at line 11.
What do?
You go back and refly line 9 and line 10. You create an insurance seam of overlap. You want to give the software plenty of data from both flights that covers the same ground.
It's like welding. You need to overlap the two pieces and melt the new metal into the old metal to get a strong bond.
That is a perfect analogy. You need a transition zone so the software can figure out how to blend the two data sets smoothly.
Moving on to section 4, positioning truth. This is where we get into the lie again. The acronyms here are fantastic. Let's start with RTK. The mnemonic is right there, corrected.
It's a cheesy mnemonic, but you'll never forget it. RTK stands for real-time kinematic. It's the gold standard for high-accuracy drones now.
How does it work in a nutshell?
Normally, a standard GPS in your phone or drone is accurate to maybe 2 or 3 meters. That's fine for driving to the store, but it's terrible for surveying. RTK uses 2 GPS receivers. One is on the drone, which we call the rover, and one is a stationary tripod on the ground, which we call the base station. The base knows its exact position. It watches the satellite signals, sees the errors caused by the atmosphere, and sends live corrections to the drone.
Like a cheat sheet for the GPS signal.
It's exactly a cheat sheet. It sends a live stream of corrections, and that lets the drone calculate its position down to, ideally, 1 or 2 centimeters.
But the myth, according to the sources, is the light is green, so I'm good.
Green light means good data. That is the most dangerous assumption in drone surveying. You can have a green fixed light on your controller, which means the drone is receiving those corrections and has a solid lock. But what if your base station is set up on the wrong coordinate?
So the base station thinks it's at a specific latitude and longitude, but it's actually 5 meters over there.
And it tells the drone, hey, from my perspective, you are here. It sends perfect corrections, but from a flawed starting point. You end up with a map that is incredibly precise. All of the distances inside the map are perfect, but the entire map is shifted 5 meters into the neighbor's property.
Precisely wrong.
The definition of precisely wrong. The source suggests a specific field habit here that's really smart. Screenshot the RTK status page during the capture, not just before you take off.
Why during?
Because before takeoff, you are on the ground right next to your base station. Of course, the signal is perfect. But what happens when the drone banks into a turn 100 meters away at the far end of the site? Does the radio connection to the base station drop for a second?
And if it drops, you lose the corrections.
You lose the corrections. And your drone's position solution goes from fixed RTK, which is centimeter accuracy, down to float or just standard GPS, which is meter accuracy. If you're not looking at the screen when that happens, you won't know until you get back to the office and see a big jump in the data.
And the sources say to check the correction age.
Yes. That number on your status screen tells you how old the data is from the base station. It should be 1 second or maybe 2 seconds. If you see it spiking to 5, 10, 15 seconds, you are losing signal. Your accuracy is degrading in real time.
And then there are GCP's ground control points. The mnemonic for this is ground claims position. I love that one. These are the physical targets we put on the ground.
These are the anchors. These are the ultimate source of truth. If your fancy RTK fails, if the GPS drifts, the GCPs tie the map down to the real world. You go out and you survey their exact centers with a survey-grade stick on the ground.
But the common failure mode here is invisible targets.
It happens all the time. You walk the site, you spray paint a big X on the ground or lay down a checkerboard vinyl mat. You think, great, I can see it perfectly, but you are standing right next to it. The drone is 300 feet in the air.
And the pixel rule is critical here.
The source material says a target needs to be 10 to 20 pixels wide in the final image to be useful for the software.
So if you're flying high or using a wide-angle lens,
Your 1 foot wide spray-painted X might only be 2 pixels wide on the sensor. It just looks like a speck of dust. The rule of thumb is if you have to squint to find the target on your computer screen, the computer algorithm has absolutely no chance of finding it automatically.
so make them big.
Make them big and check your placement. Don't put them in deep shadows. Don't put them where the morning glare from the sun is going to wash them out. If the drone can't see the exact center of the target is useless.
And there's a crucial distinction made in the manuals between GCPs and checkpoints. The analogy is steering versus grading.
This is a core concept from professional surveying that every drone pilot needs to understand. GCPs are used to build the map to steer it into the correct position. You load them into the software and you tell it, pull this part of the image so it lines up with this known coordinate.
So you're using them to control the processing. And checkpoints.
Checkpoints are points you measure on the ground with the same accuracy, but you don't tell the software about them initially. You hold them back. You keep them in your pocket.
Why would you do that?
Because you use them at the very end to check your work. You let the software build the map using only the GCPs. Then you say, okay, software, you're done. Now tell me the coordinate for this independent checkpoint that you've never seen before.
And the software gives you a coordinate from the map it built.
And you compare that to your actual on-the-ground measurement. If the difference is 2 centimeters, you pop the champagne. If the difference is 2 meters, you have a serious problem in your data.
It's like giving the software a final exam that it hasn't studied for.
It is exactly that.
Right.
If you use all your surveyed points as GCPs to build the map, you're forcing it to be right. You have no independent way to prove it's right. You're grading your own homework.
And grading your own homework is not defensible data.
Never. It's the definition of a conflict of interest.
Let's get into the weeds of Section 5.
Yeah.
Specific field traps. These are the red flags that should make a pilot nervous on site. First one on the list, rolling shutter wobble. What does that look like?
It looks like the world is made of jello. If you fly a drone that has a rolling shutter, which is most consumer and prosumer drones, and you have any vibration, straight lines get wavy. Telephone poles look bent. The straight edge of a roofline looks serrated, like a saw blade.
Why does that happen? What is a rolling shutter?
A rolling shutter doesn't take the whole picture at once, like a global shutter. It scans the image from top to bottom, line by line, very quickly. If the drone shakes or yaws while it is in the middle of scanning that image, the bottom of the image is taken from a slightly different physical position and angle than the top of the image was.
So the image itself is distorted.
Yes, the photo is warped before it's even saved to the SD card. And photogrammetry software absolutely hates that kind of distortion. If you see wavy lines in your test photos, you need to land immediately and check your propellers. Are they chipped? Is the gimbal loose? You have a vibration problem you have to solve.
Then we have the low texture zones. The source calls this the oatmeal problem. We touched on this with Blur, but this is about the surface itself being the problem.
Fresh black asphalt, a field of pure white snow, a big sand dune, a pond of calm water.
To a human, a newly paved parking lot looks beautiful and uniform.
To photogrammetry software, it looks like a black hole. It relies on finding unique points. If every pixel is the same shade of black, it can't tell them apart. It tries to match black pixel number 1 to black pixel number 500, and the math just breaks.
And this leads to a specific kind of failure called doming.
The bowl effect, yes. Because the math breaks down in the middle of the low texture area, the software gets confused about the geometry. It very often warps the flat parking lot into a curve like a giant shallow bowl. The center of the lot might end up looking 5 meters lower in elevation than the edges.
So what's the fix? If you have to map a fresh parking lot, what do?
Counterintuitively, you often need to fly higher.
Fly higher. I would have thought you'd fly lower to try and see more of the tiny grain in the asphalt.
That's the common mistake. You fly higher so that your camera can see the edges of the parking lot, the grass, the curbs, the painted lines, in the same shot as the problematic asphalt.
You need to give the software some context.
You need to give it anchors. Those high contrast edges act like ankles for the math. If you are flying too low and your camera frame is filled 100% with black asphalt, you are lost at sea with no landmarks. You need to anchor the oatmeal with the edges of the bowl.
That is a great pro tip. Anchor the oatmeal. Okay, the time trap and what the sources call the lighting clock.
This is all about consistency. The absolute worst thing you can do for a large mapping project is to fly it over 4 or 5 hours while the sun moves across the sky.
The shadows stretch and move.
And the shadows move, which is a big problem. A tree shadow at noon is short and points north. At 4 p.m., it's long and points east. The software looks at photo A from noon and photo B from 4 p.m. and tries to match them. But the shadows are completely different.
And the color of the light changes too.
Drastically. The color of the light is different. Noon light is cool and blue. Evening light is warm and orange. The whole data set becomes internally inconsistent.
It fights itself during processing.
It fights itself. If you see the light changing drastically, like a storm front is rolling in or you're approaching sunset, you might be better off landing and waiting or accepting that you will have to chop the project into 2 separate, distinct flights. You cannot stitch high noon to golden hour.
So we've terrified everyone with gremlins, traps, and lies. Now let's give them the armor. Section 6. The no broken data workflow. The source talks about the test strip philosophy.
This is the ultimate career saver. It is the single most important habit a pilot can develop, and it takes 5 minutes.
Walk us through the routine.
You arrive on site. You set up your gear. Instead of launching the drone and letting it fly the whole 30-minute mission while you sit back and, look at your phone, you fly one short line, just one single strip over a representative part of the site.
You fly it, and then you land immediately.
You land. You pull the SD card, or you download the high-res proxy files to your tablet, and you check 20 to 40 images right there in the truck before you commit to flying the whole mission.
And what are we checking for? The sources give us a great mnemonic for the image check. LNS. L-E-N-S. Let's break it down.
Okay. L is for lens. Is it clean? Is there a fingerprint smudge from when you handled the drone? Is there dust on it? You would be absolutely shocked how often a thumbprint ruins a whole map by creating a soft haze over everything.
Simple but critical.
E. E is for exposure. Does it hold texture? Are the white roofs blown out to pure white? Are the shadows under the trees crushed to pure black? Check the histogram on your camera if you have it. You want a nice mountain in the middle, not spikes slammed up against the sides.
N.
N is for no blur. This is the big one. This is your 100% zoom check. Do the swipe test we talked about. Is the gravel crisp? Does it snap into focus or does it smear?
And finally, S.
S is for side lap and overlap. Look at the sequence of photos. Do the images actually overlap the way you planned? Or is the wane stronger than you thought and it's pushing the drone sideways, creating a potential gap between your flight lines?
If you pass L and S, you are good on the optical side. But there is also a mnemonic for the positioning check. MAP.
Right. Equally important. MAP.
Go for it.
M is mode. What mode is your GPS in? Is the RTK in fixed mode, giving you centimeter accuracy? Or did it drop to float? A is for altitude. Is it consistent? Look at the metadata. Did the drone fly that test strip at a steady 100 meters? Or did it drift up or down?
And P.
P is projection datum. This is a paperwork check. Did you write down in your field notes what coordinate system you were working in?
That P sounds like a paperwork thing, but I guess if you don't write it down, you're in trouble later.
You get back to the office with data from 3 different sites, and you have to guess. Was this project in WGS 84, or was it NAD 83 state plane? And if you guess wrong, the map is shifted by several meters. It's a nightmare. Write it down.
Okay, so you do your test strip. You run the LAN S and FP checks. Let's say you find a problem. The source has a triage decision matrix. When do you patch it, and when do you just burn it down and start over?
This is about being unemotional and logical. Pilots get emotional. They're tired. They want to be done. They want to go home, the matrix says. If the issue affects less than, say, 10, 20% of the total area, like one clipped corner where you turn too tight, or one little glare stripe on a roof, you can probably patch it.
You just go back up and refly that a little bit.
Right. But you T, and this is a big but, only if you can perfectly match the lighting and altitude from the original flight. If the sun has gone behind a cloud since you started, you can't patch. The lighting won't match. You have to redo.
And when do you have to redo the whole thing?
When you have a systemic failure. If you look at your test strip and there is motion blur in every photo, you cannot patch that. The entire foundation of your data set is rotten. You have to land, change your settings, maybe increase your shutter speed, slow the drone down, and restart the entire mission from scratch.
It hurts in the moment. It feels like failing.
It hurts your pride for about 30 seconds. But it saves the second mobilization. A redo takes 30 minutes on site. A second mobilization takes a whole day out of your life, plus the fuel cost, plus the embarrassment of calling the client. It's an easy choice when you think about it that way.
Let's talk about that embarrassment factor, or
Definitely.
rather the opposite of it, professionalism. Section 7 touches on the regulatory context in places like Canada and the USA, but it frames it as a QC constraint.
It's an interesting angle. It's how regulations overlap with quality. Take Canada, for example. They have a strict requirement for a site survey before every flight. You have to assess hazards, airspace, all of that. But there's a new wrinkle coming with regulations around advertised events.
Right, like mapping a stadium during a game or a big outdoor festival.
Exactly. If you are mapping an event like that and you mess up the data, you can't just come back tomorrow during the concert and refly it. You might need something called a Special Flight Operations Certificate, an SFOC, just to be there in the first place.
And that certificate is for a very specific time window.
It is. Once that window closes, it's legally closed. Bad data in that scenario might mean you missed your legal window, not just your weather window. You can't just wing it on the fix. Your QC has to be perfect.
And in the U.S., with the FAA and Part 107 rules?
Remote ID is the big one right now. It's a non-negotiable. If you show up to a site with a drone that isn't compliant, or your remote ID broadcast module isn't working, you cannot legally fly, period. Your pre-flight QC checklist has to include, is my equipment legal to operate today?
The source talks about cultivating an identity as the safe pair of hands.
I love this concept. It's about your brand as a pilot. Project managers, the people who hire you, generally don't love the maverick pilot who flies fast, takes risks, and tries to get the cinematic shot.
Yep.
No, they love the pilot who says, I'm boring, I'm predictable, I'm methodical, and I'm checking my data before I leave.
There's a script in the notes for this, for how to talk to a client on site when you find a problem. It's something like, I'm seeing a data quality risk in this sector. It's cheaper for us to fix it now than to discover it later in the office.
That is a total power move. Imagine saying that to a client who is looking at their watch. You aren't apologizing for a delay. You are framing the delay as a cost-saving measure that you, the expert, have identified. I am saving you money by reflying this one line right now.
It turns a potential mistake into an act of competence and diligence.
It does. Because the alternative, saying, oh, it's probably fine, we'll check it later, is really just saying, we are leaving the only place on Earth where the fix is cheap.
The only place where the fix is cheap, that should be tattooed on the inside of every drone case.
It really should. Once you leave the site, the cost of fixing any error goes up by a factor of 100.
We have covered a massive amount of ground here, from the 3 gremlins, blur, gaps, and the lie to the swipe test, the perfect grid trap, and the absolute necessity of the test strip habit.
It's a complete mindset shift from being a drone flyer to being a data professional.
As we wrap up, let's recap the goal. The goal isn't just a pretty map. It's what the manuals call defensible data.
Right. Can you stand in front of your client or even a judge and defend it? Your checklist should be: optics are clean. Did you check LNS? Geometry is complete. Did you capture the edges and see behind the obstacles? Positioning is believable. Did you check MAP and your control? And the evidence chain is intact. Do you have the logs and screenshots to prove it?
If you have those 4, you have a professional product. If you miss one, you have a science project.
Yeah.
And nobody pays for a science project.
Well put.
I want to leave the listeners with a final thought from the source material. It's a bit provocative, but it really stuck with me. A map that looks beautiful but has wrong coordinates is not a map. It's a smooth lie.
That's powerful. It sticks with you. In the world of data, integrity is the only currency that matters. An ugly-looking map that is dimensionally accurate is useful. You can measure from it. You can build from it. A beautiful, high-resolution map that is wrong is actively dangerous. It gives you a false sense of confidence.
So here's our call to action for everyone listening. On your very next flight, whether it's a $1 million job or just you practicing in the backyard, implement the test trip. Fly one line, land, pull the card, check LNS, check MBAPE, see how it changes your confidence for the rest of the flight.
It changes everything. You stop hoping and you start knowing. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.